I'm an advocate of the creative industry, obviously, because I'm in it myself. I have been for the last 6 years. But there's no better person to talk to about the creative industry herself than Anne-Marie. Come on. We haven't got a backing track for you, Anne, unfortunately. Sorry about that.
Gabby, how are you?
Very good, thank you. I know you mentioned earlier that you've lived in Southampton your entire life, so no better person to talk to about Southampton than yourself. What makes it a place on the map, and what does it have to offer in terms of the creative industry?
Yeah, well, I've lived in the region, Gabby, just in case people are looking for my address in Southampton. But in terms of what makes Southampton, I think there are so many facets. The heritage, absolutely amazing. A place of real history and real character. I think, as in all places, the people. I think, there is a very rich mix of people in the city, all with a strong sense of pride in the city. And I think that sense of place and that sort of pride of place and a sense of community is so evident right across the city, and I think that does in many sense make it a very distinctive and very sort of endearing place. And I think obviously on a wider basis the assets of the city, and that's the businesses, our sort of university offering, and obviously some of those big coastal assets like the port. And I ought to mention the football team just in case people think I've forgotten the sporting assets as well.
Of course, you mentioned the football team there. Didn't do too well at the weekend, did they? No, but we'll forget about that.
We live in hope. Some good times ahead. So yeah.
And you do mention the football team, and that ties in really nicely with community, and St Mary's and Southampton as a whole does have that very much family feel in the football stadium. So obviously that's a huge factor as well, and tying in the creative industry with this place as well, because it's quite welcoming, isn't it?
Definitely, and I think people sometimes when they look at creatives forget the diversity, whether it's the arts and the culture, the sort of performance side, the galleries, but sport is such a universal dimension to creative and cultural, and it does bring people together, all ages, all sort of groups. And as a regular visitor to the St Mary's Stadium myself, and I'm going to see Watford at the weekend, so fingers crossed.
That's where I'm from.
Well, sorry, Gabby, on this level, I'm afraid we're going to go for a home win. But genuinely, I think sport is such an amazing enabler, and opens doors to other dimensions within the creative industry itself. So absolutely, I'm a massive sort of fan of promoting all the dimensions that the sector have to offer.
Okay, and another thing, it's the place you mentioned in your speech as well, it being like geographically and culturally, it's a really nice place on the map to be. So why does that tie in quite nicely with the creative industry too?
Well, I think the Solent is a very special place. I mean, as someone that's lived here all my life, obviously I would say that. But I think when you have this compelling offer of sort of 3 islands, 2 peninsulas, 2 cities, it brings with it an eclectic and rich mix of thinking, of imagination, of innovation. And I think that is genuinely what sets it apart. If you're on the Isle of Wight, you could feel like you're in the Mediterranean, and you have a particular vibe and a culture that supports an island like that. City life takes a bit of beating too, and then you've got that sort of coastal tapestry of experience. So for me, I think the collection of those experiences, the geography, and obviously the sort of wider support from the research and academic community, I just think it's a cracking place to be.
I agree. Something about the coast, it ties in nicely. It gives you that sense in the air, doesn't it, of opportunity?
100%. And I think, a number of our sort of local pioneers in the creative and cultural industry are inspired by the coast, whether it's music, there's some amazing artwork, or even some of those craft industries are all influenced by their surroundings, their natural surroundings. And that's something that you can't sort of artificially create. It is a sort of natural gift to the region that I think does inspire our sort of creative and cultural pioneers. So I just think it's fantastic.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you get you a home win.
We will get our home win. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. If we want to talk business, we talk to you. You're the man, aren't you?
I am what is known as the businessman. Yes. Yeah.
You're suited and booted, just like myself.
I've tried to come up a little bit creative today, so trying to fit in with the rest of the room, really.
Okay, well, it's working. Okay, you were speaking to me just off camera there as well. You're a family man too, and you were saying of the importance of, having a family in the region. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I've got 2 young kids. We're so lucky where we live and living here. I think just at the weekend we spent several hours in the New Forest, for example, walking the dog, going out, popping into a couple of little coffee shops. So much out there that we can enjoy. But then actually the day after, we're down the beach, we're enjoying. We've got an ice cream on the beach. Maybe not this time of year, but there are a few people out in the sea. Bit of swimming, so we're so lucky in terms of all of that around. And actually, we can also get into London with about an hour and a half as well. Actually, a bit of a romantic. Took my wife to Valentine's Day up to the West End in London. We watched a little bit of Pretty Woman, so that was nice. So in terms of we can get there in an hour and a half. So actually, what we're able to do locally from where we are, we can really enjoy all of them sort of assets and sort of cultural and creative sort of industries that make us successful.
Was the train busy on Valentine's Day? Or?
No, it wasn't. But it was. The theatre was packed actually. So there's a lot of red roses. It got me a lot of brownie points. I hope the wife is watching today as well. I should say that.
Commenting.
Yeah. Nicely, hopefully.
Also, you mentioned there as well. A lot of people, especially since COVID, are moving a little bit further away from London. I noticed. I am from London myself. But I noticed when I got on the train yesterday, rush hour time, it was packed. So somewhere like here, people want to move to more so since COVID. Like, why would you say that is? I
think, being surrounded by, we're all sort of been working at home. We have as well, stuck in the office. And, it was really tough for people and businesses and everybody, been having to work from home, which in the sort of nature of work that we do has been challenging. Speaking to a lot of business owners that are on the brink of losing their business. And when we were on sort of lockdown, we weren't even allowed to go out of the house and enjoy what was around us and literally on our doorstep. So I think people have kind of recognised that and started. Habits are changing a little bit, and I think where I talked about where we live, we bought a inflatable kayak, for example, and I'd love to own a boat, but unfortunately finances and all of that. So we bought a kayak, and I've been able to get the kids out on the kayak. The amount of water that we're surrounded by. We bought mountain bikes, so we're able to go out in the forest, down the mountain bikes, all very safe, of course, with the children. But just being able to get out and do that, and a good real mix of working at home and that sort of whole work and play balance, really.
You sold it to me. I wouldn't fancy a kayak on the Thames. So. And more on the business side of things, the importance of partners in the region and support to bid as well.
Yeah, it's collaboration is key, I think, and we work with we have a range of sort of strategic partners that we work with. That can range from local authorities, so making sure we engage with our sort of 8 local authorities across the whole of the region. Then we also make sure we work with both the public and private sector. I think it's key that we engage and leverage off what we can from private sector partners as well. But we're quite a condensed area. There's a lot of people, a lot of businesses. There's a lot of support available, so it can be a very difficult place to navigate for businesses in terms of if they're looking for help or support. What does that look like? Where do they go? Who do they speak to? So trying to create that environment where what we might call like a no wrong door type approach. So although you might come and speak to us, you can still get to someone else that you need to speak to, and vice versa. If you come in through them, they can then refer it back to us. So trying to work collaboratively is key to not our success, but also I think the region's success as well.
Well, you're going to be working collaboratively a little bit later on because you're going to be doing a workshop. What will that consist of?
Yeah, so we've got a small panel. We've got a couple of experts. We've got one expert, Andy, from IncuHive. IncuHive are a sort of flexible co-working space business that have grown recently in the last sort of year, I would say, opening up. Talked about people's habits changing. So creating spaces where people can start businesses, but also environments where they can network, meet others, collaborate. And probably quite sociable spaces as well. I think where people work and where they operate from, it's the environments have changed. Gone are the days of probably just kind of banks and lines of desks and people. Very much new young entrepreneurs are looking for slightly different environments, whether that be a pizza and a beer after work, or going out on a run at lunchtime, etc., etc. So we've got Andy coming in to talk about startups and some of the challenges, some of the support available for startups. We've also got a colleague from our Solent and Apprenticeship Skills Hub, Jodie, who's going to talk about talent, skills and what training opportunities. We're also going to hear from a creative business, Helical, who one of the partners in supporting run this live event as well, and get a bit of a view from the business themselves in terms of what challenges and opportunities they've had to face. Okay,
well, brilliant. Well, I fancy my beer and my pizza over the run on my lunch, but thank you so much for your time, James. Thank you.
Thanks, Gabby. Thanks.
So I'm here with the lovely Shelina, and it certainly shows you're in the creative industry because you look lovely today, winning on the Style Stakes this morning. How are you getting on, and can you just tell us a little bit about your role for starters too?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm now chair of Southampton 2025 Trust. So we're in the process of leading through the bid. But my personal hat is I'm an owner of a restaurant, La Case Mama, Mauritian Street Kitchen here in Southampton.
Oh, busy lady then.
Absolutely.
Tell me a little bit about the importance of that collaboration in the workplace, especially when that is linked with obviously the creative industry too.
I think probably on a broader perspective, events like this today help us to get a really good multi-agency approach to partnership. I think in terms of the region, being able to talk to each other about what our creative industries really feel and look like is key to moving forward, really.
Okay, and why is the region here so important in terms, obviously, the creative industry too?
Why is this region important? I think Southampton in particular has had a story for so long. We're often a story of movement, and it's a transitional story. A lot of people come to Southampton, but they don't often stay. So they move through here because of the port. They'll come here as the first, point off a boat, for example, and then they transition to other places in the UK. And I think Southampton has never really shouted so loudly about who they are before, but we're a town, we're a very young city. We're a diverse city, and we speak over 150 languages. And I think collectively that voice, that creative voice, needs to be shouted about. Hence the reason why we're bidding for Southampton to be UK City of Culture. Okay,
and it's really interesting what you say, because about being transient and people coming here and then leaving. They used to say that about the football club as well. They used to call Southampton a feeder club because they'd grow and create amazing players, but then they'd move on and sell them. And I had a few friends that went to Solent Uni. They're great in what they do, working in music and in the arts industry too. But again, they've moved on. So what can you do to kind of keep them here and stay and make it this a place on the map that for the creative industry?
Well, actually, I think this is probably where I talk about my personal story a bit. So I'm born and bred Southampton, and I left the city, stayed out of Southampton, lived in London for about 10 to 12 years and did MasterChef there. Now, most people who do MasterChef and win MasterChef tend to get restaurants in London. They go on to do things London-centric, and I didn't want to. There was a burning desire to bring it back home. Bring it to Southampton. Why not? Why should Southampton not be the place where we have a thriving food cultural scene? Why can't I help to inspire other people, other industries, and work together with lots of different people to try and to bring my food to the city? So I think in terms of a personal drive, for me, I want to see the city grow, and I want to harness what we have, keep our talent, and pay them.
Okay, and it was interesting what a gentleman was saying earlier about having Bristol and Brighton as a place on the map. What would differentiate Southampton from that, and to have their identity as different to the other two?
Well, we're not Brighton and we're not Bournemouth. We are Southampton, and Southampton, I think our greatest asset is our people. And we have an incredible cultural industry. I think we have just never been proud enough to talk about it. And I think that's what the bid is helping us to do, is to help have a cohesive and collective voice. And we're getting some people from all different communities, people who have never really been heard before, and giving them that sort of power to be able to say that we are Southampton and we're going to make it so.
Okay. Well, you sold it to me, and you sold your restaurant to me as well. I'll be popping around there later on. Thank you so much, Shelina.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm here with James, who is an advocate of the creative industry for obvious reasons. Tell me a little bit about your business for starters.
Sure. So I run a business called Shogun Social, and essentially we help businesses post like creators. It's a bit of an easy equation. For anyone that asks yourself at home, how many businesses do you follow for fun when the workday's over?
There we are.
Yeah, not many. And that's the problem we're trying to solve, essentially. So, we have clients like Barclays Eagle Labs, Southampton 2025, and Southampton City Council. And it's essentially humanising them, helping them realise they need to earn an audience and you can no longer buy it, especially in post-pandemic changes. And we do that via TikTok, podcasting, and basically everything in the creative realm to make sure you can actually put out good content.
Okay. And the creative industries, it's got more importance, I'd say, now more than ever, hasn't it?
Absolutely. Because if you don't have an online audience, you don't exist. So creatively speaking, you need to think of creative ways to actually earn an audience. You have to find good ways to interact with people and, build a real community, regardless of what type of business you are or actually what type of creator you are. So, creative ways around that are extremely important. And there are multiple avenues and ways in, because I actually came from an account management background, not actually traditional creative. So you find your way in and then eventually you end up finding your strengths.
Okay, well, how did you find your way in then? If you said you were from an account background, how did you transition into this?
So I went to Solent, did advertising, got a job in B&Q's advertising team in their lead marketing sector. Didn't like it very much. It's very, very corporate, and you don't get to be that creative in your client side. So then I went agency side, spent some time in some other agencies, and in my last one, we were in lockdown 1. So in my bedroom, just me going, I'm working for someone else here, don't really like it. So let's take the creative skills, the gap I saw with how the pandemic was changing social media, especially with TikTok, and I went, let's start a business to help other businesses post like creators. Got on Fiverr, got some of my own clients, enough to get my own salary out. And then here we are a year and 7 months later with the likes of Barclays Council and Southampton 2025.
So you have to be quite self-sufficient as well, don't you, in terms of this? You have to be a self-starter, and it's not all about learning things and what you could learn at uni, whatever. It's about, very much comes from you too, doesn't it?
Yeah, if it wasn't for the extra stuff I did outside of uni, I would not be stood here. It is lots of extra education, so all of the things that HubSpot provide is free education, all the Google Skill Shop that they provide, YouTube tutorials, and then finding the way you communicate via content is another one as well. So if I didn't go out and get those extra qualifications, plus also find your own work experience, I can't emphasize that enough. Go and find people, reach out to people, even if it's a long shot. LinkedIn's amazing for it. Just make sure you get on that, because I wouldn't be here without stepping up and doing those extra bits.
Yeah, and you mentioned things like YouTube tutorials. Is that how you kind of learnt your craft too? Was that played a huge part in that too?
Well, when you're trying to find out certain ways to do TikToks, so people have made up like unique transitions and things like that. So, when you're trying to go on your phone, you're like, okay, right, so I've got to do that, and then I've got to flip it around. It's stuff like that can actually be quite interesting to know, or different editing techniques, because I did TV and film in college, a basic degree of that. Yeah. But, there's always more to learn in that regard, like no motion graphics or anything else. So you have to bootstrap and learn everything yourself to a basic degree, and then get in specialists as you go, which is how the business has been growing now. Now there's 4 of us, but we're hiring for 3 more. And open to work experience.
There we go. Yeah. Advertisement there. How many TikToks have you done in your spare time then, have you?
Quite a few, although we could definitely be better with it. It requires a lot of volume TikTok, so anyone looking to get into it now, I would design yourself a bit of a sprint, so you can post 1 or 2 TikToks a day for the next 2 months. And then you have a really solid standing on the platform itself. So if you're going to start TikTok, do it right, do it human, and keep it casual, because that's the biggest thing. Authenticity reigns on the app.
Okay, just quickly about the bid. How much does it excite you? And obviously, if they were to be successful and win, how much would that benefit your business?
It would benefit us massively. I mean, the fact that we support them already, because I believe in the vision, I think there's always been this perfect gap to bring Southampton together. I was talking to Councillor Fitzhenry the other day purely about why Southampton feels a bit bitty, and it's because we never really recovered after the war, apparently, which I had no idea about, because we were bombed to all hell. And then as our communities are almost segmented, this could finally bring a thing that brings us together to actually create us and make us a powerhouse. And having been born and lived here, I want that. There's that sense of pride in me. Plus, there's already a creative gap for us, because we're already the largest social media agency in Southampton by accident, because there wasn't one before. So there's a massive gap for us to grow. There's a massive gap for Southampton to grow, and I want to see it all flourish together. And this is going to be the thing to do it.
Yeah, you've obviously already seen a huge change since, obviously, like you said, growing up to now, because you're still here.
Yeah, absolutely. Living and breathing and succeeding. And I'm glad I actually get to create jobs in the town I was born in. So it's really cool. And there's still so many businesses that I know I can help and bring partnerships with, and generally just help everyone flourish.
Okay, best of luck to you, and thanks for your insight. Thank you. Cheers, thanks. So we've got Dan Crowe here. You may have heard him speak a little bit earlier on. A very creative individual, all about the arts. I think a lot of people would probably quite like to know how you got into what you do, and just please can you explain your role and your background as well?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I came to Southampton in 1995 to be a student, studied fine art here at Solent University, and by the time I'd ended my course I had lots of friends here. It's a much bigger city than where I'm from, and I just felt there was lots of opportunities in Southampton. I think there's still opportunities here now, and I wanted to open an art gallery, so I did, and that's where my kind of creative journey began really, yeah.
I found it when I was at school, they kind of would try to steer you away from creative subjects. I don't know why so much, but now I feel like creativity is at the core of most things that we do. Why do you think there's been so much of a change, and how beneficial is that to obviously this area too?
I think the switch to kind of value in our creativity and our creative industries is huge. We saw some statistics earlier, like, it's 116 billion pounds to the economy every year. That's huge. Like you, I was dissuaded at school, and actually that was the only thing I really wanted to do. So I wasn't that academic, and I just kind of gravitated toward arts and, kind of did my GCSEs, A-levels and degrees. Just kind of that was the route I followed, really. And I'd encourage anyone to take that route. It was more about, and I didn't realise this at the time, I was just following my passion. And I think if you truly believe in what drives you as a person, you can make a career out of that. Even if it seems like an abstract thing, like I was a painter. How am I going to make, I don't know, but you forge a career somehow because the passion keeps you interested, and any start-up creative has to work tremendously hard. And you're not going to work that hard if it's not something you're passionate about. Exactly.
And also, you mentioned you were obviously studying art. Again, back when I was at school, they didn't really give you many options in terms of what you could go on to do in terms of art. Yeah. You were obviously passionate about what you wanted to do, and so it's obviously paid off. But for now, do you feel like there are more opportunities in terms of in that industry?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. I think the economy is more geared around that, and one of our panellists touched on it earlier on. You could be a lawyer but still work with intellectual property. There's still a creative angle to that. And again, I think more contemporary view on that coming out of lockdown. A lot of people use that time to kind of reconnect with things that were creative for them. So whilst we're here today talking about creative industries, I think, creativity is just an innate human, passion, desire, ability. So it's something that we should all really kind of value in ourselves. If it's your business or not, it's just good for you, good for your well-being.
Okay. And if we pinpoint Southampton as a whole, as a creative place, what has the city got to offer?
It's got lots of room for things to happen in. We haven't reached saturation point yet. It was we're not Bristol or Brighton, and we don't want to be. We want to be Southampton, and we've got a really brilliant sort of set of scenes here. The music scene in the city is fantastic. The visual arts scene here is fantastic, and there's routes into those. The challenge of anyone going into a creative industry, especially as an artist, is getting paid properly. So, organisations like ourselves and many, many others around the country are all signed up to kind of fair pay campaigns, because you see so many artists develop portfolio careers or work in Tesco's to support their practice. And we, as an industry, we're trying to stop that. We need to value people and pay them properly. So I think if we can crack that nut, and then we'd encourage more people to come into the art sector.
Okay, and you mentioned obviously Bristol and Brighton there. How does Southampton, or how will Southampton create their own identity? Because or differentiate themselves from them two places?
Well, I think we are already. We've just got a lot much further way to go on that journey. How do we do it? I think we could really. I think of Bristol. I think of Banksy. I think of Massive Attack. I think we could really do with some more breakthrough bands. Not that hadn't had any, but more. Some real kind of breakthrough artists. So we've got some role models. So other people around the country, you might hear of that band, and then you kind of link to where they're from. And I think that would really help build up our kind of cultural currency. There's not one answer. We need a whole bunch of things to happen, but we're definitely on the right, facing in the right direction.
Okay, I don't want to look too far ahead, but winning bid, how much would that impact like local businesses or even emerge new talent in the area as well?
It's difficult to articulate. It's huge, and you look at the sort of the statistics of what came out of Hull and the economy of Hull, and it could be Southampton's boom time. It really, really could. The opportunities that it could bring for local people, local artists are huge. You know, we could be bringing people into the city that have never, you know, produced theatre here before, put on exhibitions here before. So it's just massive. It's difficult to describe how big this could be.
Yeah, well, you're clearly passionate about it, I can see there. But thank you so much for your time, Dan. I'm excited. I wish the best of luck.
Thanks very much.
Hello to you both, firstly. You both look very nice. Nice tie there, very creative in itself. Yeah. You're both from the Isle of Wight, aren't you?
Yes, we are, Gabby. Yeah, glad to be here today in Southampton, supporting the City of Culture bid.
Indeed, well, it's great to have you. Firstly, I'd quite like to know, what does the Isle of Wight bring to the table?
Well, I've actually got a raft of untapped potential on the island. Very, very creative place. In fact, you know, from an economic point of view, 30% of people who are employed on the Isle of Wight are employed in a creative industry. So it's really, really important to us. And you know, our history as well as what currently goes on with our music festivals. And well, Jonathan, we've got so much, haven't we?
We have so much. Yes, we're sort of
Where to start?
cultural oasis. So we go from Tennyson and Turner back in the day to Wet Leg Coach Party. We're not called Festival Island for a good reason. It's there's so much going on the island. You know, there's something every weekend during the summer, whether it be the big Isle of Wight Festival to little events like the Sweet Corn Fair and so on and so forth. It's all happening.
There's a lot of talent, a lot of art, a lot of creativity emerging from obviously the Isle of Wight. Why do you think sometimes it gets overlooked, would you say?
Well, it has been overlooked because the Arts Council themselves have just named us one of their priority places across the southwest region, only 1 out of 11, because they've realised they haven't really invested much on the island. And I think maybe because I think some of that geographical, you know, having water between us, and people maybe sort of forget about us somehow. We just get on. We're a very resilient community. We just get on and do things ourselves, really. But also people have come to us, you know, talk about Darwin, started writing The Origin of Species there. Lewis Carroll started writing Hunting of the Snark. We've got Julie Margaret Cameron, as you said, mentioned Tennyson. You know, it's been a magnet for creatives for centuries. So we just need to get back on stage again, really. So that's why we're delighted to be part of Southampton's City of Culture bid. So make it so. Yeah, we're a regional partner, so we've actually invested £10,000 to be a partner as a council. And once it's successful, they would commit some more money to making it all happen in 2025.
Okay. How do you I was just about to elaborate on how you're tying both together.
Well, what I did want to add to what Julie said about us now being recognised is, of course, one thing that happened very recently is we've been recognised as a UNESCO biosphere. That's one of only 717 in the world, one of only 3 in England, and we are an area where the environment and the community work together, and part of that is our culture and heritage. We are internationally recognised as somewhere that has all the good stuff, and part of what we're doing, helping with Sandown with, is making the most of that and showing what we're all about, and the fact that we are closely related to the south coast of England, to bring that to the party.
And why would you say somewhere like Isle of Wight, it's like geography, its culture, its heritage, ties in so nicely or so well with the creative industry too?
I think just having just the beautiful landscapes gives you time to think and to be. We heard earlier, didn't we, that our panellists were saying how important it is for artists just to have that space and time to do it, and you can, because time is a bit slow on the island, isn't it? I think, you know, they're still rushing for a ferry, obviously, so to come over here. So yeah, just sometimes think about the pace of life. It just helps people who want to be creative just sort of sit back and just let it happen. Be inspired as well.
But it helped Turner paint, it helped Tennyson write, it's helped so many artists make great music. There's just something about the island that inspires people, and I think for very good reason.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time. You sold it to me. I'm going to make a trip there soon.
Yeah, no, do come. Yeah, we're very welcome. Yeah. Thank you.
I've never been to the Isle of Wight Festival. I've never been.
Well, we've got a great line-up this year, so yeah, in June, so come on over.
Do I need a presenter or?
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Thank you so much for your time
thank you,
as well.
Gabby.
Brilliant. Thank you.